Windows 10 will no longer be supported by Microsoft on October 14th, 2025. Fusion product support will require Windows 11 23H2 or later with our January 2026 release. Well, it's a good thing I'm using the free version of Fusion where you never actually provide support. Hello everyone, and today we are going to be solving another issue using 3D printing. So, the problem today was that I was given this microphone by my grandfather. It did come with a case originally. I really wish I could have kept the case because it was, it was kind of nice, and it had the PV branding and stuff, but unfortunately it was a injection molded or whatever kind of clamp or snap thing where it used a living hinge, and after years of use, the living hinge died. I think it just was missing, actually. And if it was there, it was too weak to actually hold anything. So that's where this comes in, where we need to make a new box from this foam molding, or for this foam molding, which then can hold the microphone, obviously. One problem is that the microphone does stick out slightly above the foam, so that's going to be a bit of an issue while modeling, but we can probably take care of that. So, the first things first is we got to set up our project where we need to make our basic parameters first. So, the first thing is we need our box dimensions. The width of this foam, which is going to be hard to measure because you can't truly get an accurate reading, and this foam is also a little wavy. So that's can be a bit frustrating because it seems to bulge out on the ends here, but it's hard to tell. Maybe I can squeeze it in, but it's gonna be difficult to tell. Like I said, it's hard to tell. We're just gonna say 89 millimeters. It's gonna take a lot of plastic if I mess this up, but luckily I have a company that I'm working with right now, so that'll come up later. Now the next thing is the length, which is going to be even more difficult because my calipers are not long enough to measure it. So I have to measure it using a tape measure, but unfortunately I don't have a metric tape measure either. So I'm gonna have to try and do like a conversion. The tape measure is trying to pull in on the foam if I leave it loose like that, so I have to try and hold it to where it should properly be. Let's say it's 8 1/4. So now I need to get that conversion, 8.25, which is, we're just gonna round up to say 210 millimeters. Now we need the depth, which is going to be difficult. So we want the actual box depth to be just the size of the foam. So we're going to have to implement a few millimeters of clearance room for this part of the microphone. It's going to be a little iffy on how well it's going to work because this microphone's at an angle, so then even if we have a flat surface, the only thing that would stop it is this, but then it's probably going to fold down. I'm also not intending on actually like throwing this around, obviously, so even though I'm going to be making the box at a TPU because it theoretically has better damage resistance and stuff like that, it's, yeah. So we have to try and use the calipers to figure out what the depth of this is. Just lightly try and press it against it so that we get the right measurement. Give it a little bit of tolerance. 50.7. Now we need to decide how thick we want the walls. Normal storage is not very thick, but I would prefer to have this be as, danger-proof as possible, if that's even the right word. It might be a little overkill, but I am going to go with 6 millimeters, which gives it just a nice thickness that should hopefully provide some padding in combination with the TPU and such. So let's start drawing out something and just get this party started or whatever. Now we can make the inner sides here. So we need length here, and then width there. And then we can easily just offset this using the box thickness. Bam. There's our box right there. But let's start with an extrusion. It'll be a new body because it has to be anyway. This will be depth, the box depth. That creates that. It removes the sketch automatically, but we need that sketch still, as usual. Extrude from here and here. And we do not want it to be a new object, but I'm sure it'll switch when we actually do it. This needs to be the thickness. Okay, but we need to make it negative, and then it creates it as a join, so then these are still one object. So now we have the very basics of a box, and this would be great, but now we need a lid. Now here's where things get difficult. There are two schools of thought that I'm thinking of here. I don't know how I would do this first one, which is that we could make an actual lid that sits on here if we inset this, which we could also probably make the body thicker then the walls, and then we can make it inset wall, and then it could use friction fit to close, but you have to get that tolerance just right, and since I'm using a new filament, that might be difficult. But we also could make a tolerance tester for that, which actually I'm thinking we might want to do, because now that I'm thinking about it, since this box is going to be somewhat, it's just for basic storage, I don't want to go through the effort of doing the second option, which would be to make a hinge system for this. I don't think I want to go through the hinge system, so let's actually make a new project. So there is one issue with creating test things, because normally when you do a test thing, you want to make it on a small scale. And when you're testing things personally, it's because you're making something on a larger scale. Now, when you do something on a small scale, it doesn't always translate perfectly, which I had that issue when I was testing out my hinge on the other project. So that's something you have to be aware of, unfortunately. So I want this to be the inner box, so we'll have to make this match the outer portion. Geez, that is really small inside compared to the outside. Either way, that's not what we're testing, but I want to see what the flex is like on the walls a bit. But like I said, this is so small that it probably won't even accurately show it, especially when you consider this length compared to, the 10 millimeters of length or whatever. Since we are printing this out of TPU, we probably could make the lid a little deeper than usual when doing this friction fit style, because you could theoretically bend the lid and kind of peel it off of the top rather than having to slide it vertically completely, because it's not a rigid object like if you're using PETG or TPU. Or PLA. So first thing is we need to finish the sketch, extrude this. Now, since this is 6 millimeters, I should have made freaking parameters for this. Wall thickness, well, we don't have to, but this is what I decided, it is divided by 2 just to make it half the size, which is why I'm thinking maybe I'll up the wall thickness to 8 millimeters, possibly, depending on how this works. I don't know. We'll see. So now we need to create a sketch up here. We will project this outer wall here so that it will always hopefully stay the same. Then we also can do an offset here, but it'll be a negative offset. Negative lip thickness. Then we extrude this downwards by a depth, which that's going to be the next thing we have to figure out. So here's where calipers also come in handy. Is not even for measuring, but this just try and estimate what a good thing would be, good measurement. Because since this is TPU, I don't think I was thinking 3 millimeters as my base thing just to make it a square, but I'm thinking that might not be enough surface area. So maybe 6 is what I'm thinking. So I'll still make a parameter for that. So now we extrude this by lid lip depth, and of course it needs to be the other way. Cut it. There it is. Now here's the thing with TPU, at least my experience with Polymaker TPU and using it on my Bamboo Labs P1P. Normally when I do something with PLA or PETG, I use a 0.2 millimeter fit tolerance to make everything fit in place properly. And that comes down to plastic expansion, error on the printer's side, slicer side, all that sort of stuff. However, when I was using the Polymaker TPU, it literally needed 0 fit tolerance adjustment. It just came up perfect, which was honestly amazing. So that's why I definitely want to do a test piece here. The next thing is I think we need another sketch, unfortunately. Actually, no, we don't. This one's usable. Here's what's happening. We need to adjust this sketch, first of all. And then we need to create and project the inner square. We'll just do the actual object, because then that should always adjust with that. So now we need to go out of the sketch. We need to extrude downwards. So negative lip depth. And we also need to make this a new body, because we want this to be the start of the lid. But since there is 0 fit tolerance, it is trying to connect with the other body we've made. It would also try and do that because we also don't have any fit tolerance on the vertical axis. Usually my P1P has very good vertical axis calibration no matter what plastic it's using. So another thing we can do is also just hide body 1. So let's rename this to box, and we'll rename the second one to lid. Now we need to extrude all 3 of these upward by the thickness, the wall thickness. And once again, even if this doesn't necessarily work, the peeling motion may actually work better on the larger model because of how much area there is to flex without breaking it. This is going to be somewhat thick for how small it is, so it actually might be very stable and sturdy and not allow for the flexing motion. However, if the friction fit is good enough, it still could prove a point that hopefully, you know, that my big box should work. Additionally, printing this type of box will be much easier because all you have to do is print your main box with this thing on the surface, this side on the surface, and then you have to print your lid with this side on the surface. So that's pretty cool. Another thing I wanted to do to make hopefully the fit a little bit better, or maybe removal a little easier, is to actually round off the inner corners of this place here, the actual lip fit. Now the other thing is we're just going to add some rounding to the edges here. This is for, even on the test piece, this is for looks, but also removal of the parts from the print bed so you can get underneath it, kind of scoop it up, especially with TPU, which can be a little tougher than usual to sometimes get off of build surfaces because it is so flexy and it doesn't have like rigid bodies typically, unless it's a big object to yank on. So once again, I should make a thing for this. Oh, and I gotta add a value. Let's just do 3 for now. Outer box rounding. So that's what it will kind of look like. I kind of like it. Now, another thing that I would like to do is I want to do a cross analysis of that, section analysis of that, to see how it will look compared to the inside, how much, if we have enough room on that corner, if it's gonna weaken it too much because of how curved that is. So here is what it looks like, and that looks perfectly fine on both sides. It's got lots of room to work with, but also it's kind of hard to tell on the scale because this looks big enough, but these walls are probably going to be very thin. 3mm is not a lot to work with, and even 4, that might strengthen it a decent bit, but that's why we're doing this test. I think that these lips may flex a decent bit, which could work to our advantage, but it's hard for me to know exactly. Either way, this is what we're going with for our first test print. I also have to save. Okay, so I tuned the filament a little bit in another video doing a review of the TPU that we're going to be using. I forgot to talk about the filament we're using in the main video, which we are using 3D Hojoy, spelled with an R at the end, 95A TPU. This got sent to me, so thank you to the company for that. I haven't used the filament extensively yet, but it seems to be pretty good based off of the few things that I've been able to print so far. The quality is decent. There have been just a few minor flaws in the prints that I've done so far, which can also probably be tuned out or come down to other factors. They also supposedly have a no clog guarantee. This was listed in their sales material when I connected with them. I don't know what they will do to back up this claim if you do have a clog, but it was said. I've been enjoying the filament so far, and I have a review video for this filament, as said before in this video. If you like what you see of this filament in either of the videos, I should have affiliate links in the descriptions of each below to get yourself some and also help me out in the process. Back to the video. And the changes are actually very minimal. I think that actually I have only made one change, which is the retraction length from the default 0.4 to 0.7. So hopefully that helps, and this filament just generally prints fairly well. So I'm gonna hope that this turns out well, and it's just gonna be a question of how well the tolerances work now. The only other thing would be that maybe I would need to slow down the filament speed to properly print these overhangs and maybe the corners. I don't know for sure. I should probably round those off as well, because it's just generally not a great idea to have hard corners like that in 3D printing. Let's slice this and just let's send it, see what happens. I'm going to try it with the 10% infill, which still seems like it might be a lot, but also it should hopefully keep it steady in a 3D format. I would think it should be able to stabilize itself vertically, horizontally, and in all directions, basically. So yeah, let's print this, see what happens. Okay, so here is the test print, and as far as I can tell, it came out perfectly. I don't even see any stringing, but also that's because logically this should have printed in all continued movement. There shouldn't be any like moving, you know, side back and forth, so that makes sense. let's see how this removes and then how it functions. Okay, so here are the two pieces on the G10 build plate. I have to make a video about this still, but I have stuff getting in the way right now. So here it is. Ooh, very nice. Very clean removal. Very satisfying. There was just the right amount of stick. I said this on the filament review, but the TPU with the G10 build plate makes these bottom surfaces just slick and smooth, and it's a really satisfying surface. Almost kind of like a, maybe not necessarily as good as like a worry stone, if you know about those, but it's just supposed to be something that you just rub. It's super smooth and satisfying to rub against, and it's kind of got that feel to it. Alright, so let's see how these go together. Very well. So the first thing is that it's not fully staying on like perfectly all the time, but there is enough where it's gripping, and I think what's helping the actual grip here is just the actual 3D printed process and the imperfections of the 3D printing process with the layer lines. I think that the little itty bitty ridges are kind of locking together here and creating a nice little fit. It actually could be firmer, but it's already at 0 fit tolerance. So if I shrunk it down, it might be an issue, but I might have to try it. But yeah, you can hear as I remove and apply it, it has the little noises. So yeah, I actually am going to try shrinking this down, the lid down a little bit, and seeing how that works. This also makes a little satisfying box. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so what I've done is I have created a couple different lids. I have the original lid here, which actually I had to recreate, which is why it doesn't have the curves. But I made these other lids that have labels on them. So this one has negative 0.1 millimeter of tolerance, and this one has negative 0.05 of tolerance, because I don't know exactly how much is going to be enough or too much. I also have added some the rounding on the corners, just it's a 1 millimeter rounding, just to have the continuous flow around the corners and that sort of thing. I didn't check to see if there was any bulging. It looks like there might be the tiniest bit of bulging on the inside of the corners, but it's not a whole lot. And that's probably on this seam of where it actually starts and ends, or, you know, just ends and starts, whatever, something like that. Anyway, I'm going to export these, and then I'm going to slice them the exact same way, and then I'm going to print them, and then we'll see how they work.
Okay, here's the two lids. So the first thing I want to mention is that there's like pretty much no stringing between these. I don't see any. So that's very surprising. You'd think there would be some. I think there's a little bit of fuzz on the sides of them, maybe. But yeah. The other thing is that I made another change after I finished recording on the computer. I changed the corners to be 2 millimeters instead of 3, so that they would hopefully print a little bit better, because I did notice a little bit of sagging and such. There's still a tiny bit, it looks like, but it looks like the corners are a little more better rounded. So it looks like these came out a little bit better, and now let's see how they actually fit. Okay, so let's remove the prints, see how they remove. Same as always. The text came out crisp on this. This came out even better than on my benchies, which I was using to test. It seems just a little bit more ambiguous on this one compared to on the lids here. These lids came out just really nice. They're both visible, but I think this one turned out just a bit better. I think it's also because I didn't use bold lettering. I think I forgot to turn that on. But actually I might not want to do that anymore, because actually that looks pretty good. Let's try the negative 0.05 tolerance first. Okay. That one has a decent grip. It feels like kind of like just the right pressure, but it feels like it might be able to fall off if it got hit at the right angle. Let's see if -1 is any better. Now that one's got some decent grip. That feels substantial, at least. Which is so strange. Maybe these are expanding out a little bit more than they're supposed to, or something like that. I should probably measure these to see what actual size they're coming to. Okay, so I got my calipers. It's going to be hard to measure this stuff since it is a flexible filament. Let's try and get down to this. So the outside came to 15.6, 15.5, somewhere around there. Actually, no, that is smaller.
Because now that I think about it, it's 0.5 millimeters smaller than it's supposed to, because the inside is supposed to be 10 millimeters. Oh, and then it's plus 6. Yeah, so this is 0.5 millimeters smaller than it's supposed to be. Interesting. Now this could also come down to the P1P, and that's what I would assume, honestly, is probably what the problem is just either slicer settings, or I need to do some calibrations on this. I don't know how to do like E-steps or whatever on this machine, so yeah, that's part of the problem. Okay, so there's our issue right there, is that the inside comes out to 16 millimeters even. Perfect what the size was supposed to be. And this is the 0 tolerance one. However, for some reason this square came out smaller than it was supposed to. And then if we do the -1, that one came out to around 15.7 millimeters, which is why it has a much tighter grip, because it's actually getting closer to the tolerance that I would have actually set when using normal plastic, or PLA, I mean by normal plastic. I don't know how to track down what exactly is causing that. I'm gonna try and do some investigation and see if I can figure this out. Okay, so here's what happened. I have now calibrated the printer with the filament. So I used in Bamboo Studio, in the filament, there is a filament shrinkage thing that is set to 100% by default, I think, on all filaments. Basically, you print a calibration and then you do the math to see how much percentage it has shrunk or the size is off, and basically my print was 0.5 millimeters off from 100 millimeters. So hopefully this stuff is the right size. Problem, I did not save it, unfortunately, and I had to restart my computer. So I tried to adjust it again. Hopefully it's the right size. I don't remember what the value I changed, what I changed the value to. So let's see how well these turned out. They're being a little more difficult to pull off, but I think that might just be because of the orientation on how I printed all of them. Couldn't grab them properly. So here is the basic one, which I believe has 0 fit tolerance. It's still somewhat loose. I might have to measure this and see how it turns out, but this actually seems looser than before, so that's not a good sign. Here we have the -0.05 fit tolerance, so it's actually getting smaller on itself than it's even supposed to be, so that's why this is so weird to me. And this, fits pretty averagely. It seems okay. So then here's -0.1. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell without having my other tests over here. It seems like a solid fit. I think I'm just going to try and print the whole big box and see if it works. Logically it should. I don't see a reason why it shouldn't, but like I said, sometimes these test models don't always work out exactly. They don't always demonstrate everything properly, especially when you're doing something at a much larger scale. It can be iffy sometimes. So let's just see what happens.
So hopefully it wasn't very long for you, but it's been a few days for me, and I realized that I hadn't even finished creating the 3D model for the actual box. We're just going to try and get that finished as soon as possible, obviously. The first thing we have to do is make the lip. Do I have a sketch for that? I only have the base sketch. Make an actual one for there. We can then create a projection of, let's say, the inside. We take the offset thing, we offset this by wall thickness divided by 2. Okie dokie. Then what's next is that we project the outside as well, so that we actually have a full object to extrude from. Extrude this outer line. Do I have a lip depth, I'm guessing? No, I don't. And then I should probably also make a separate thing just in case for the lid lip thickness. I don't know if that would be the right thing. Which will then be wall thickness divided by 2, so then we'll switch the value in this sketch. And we have to negative it because it's going the wrong way. Cut that, there it is. So the next thing is making the lid, which is going to be a slightly complicated process. You probably remember, but the issue is that the microphone end slightly sticks out. So what my thought is, I could try and contour to it, but is that the best solution? Would doing a flat area be fine? I think we should try and do the flat one first, but the only other problem is then I have to figure out what the depth of how much is sticking out, basically. Maybe I could estimate it by
This is the dumbest way of doing this probably, but I'm trying to line up the bottom tooth of the caliper with the edge of the foam, and then I'm trying to line up the top caliper with the apex of the microphone. It's so stupid. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I got 2.3, so let's go with 2.5 of extra height. We need to make another parameter. The other thing I need to do is make sure that what dimension this actually is. I just really hope this box is the right size. Damn it, now I have to frickin' try and measure it again, double check. It's so hard to measure this foam because it is so squishy. So what is the width that I have already? It's 89. Well, I almost have 89.8 here. The better thing would have been to have kept the original box, and then measured that, but unfortunately we haven't had the box for a long time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have it at 90 millimeters of width. Then I have to measure the length again, which is going to be a whole thing because I don't have something long enough to properly measure it except for a tape measure, which is in inches. I think I got this roughly the same measurement, which was 8 3/4 of an inch. 222. I did not get that. Okay, so it's 8.5. 8.5 inches is 215.9, so we'll just do 216. So a little more, but that's okay. At least I got hopefully the proper measurement, and that's even a little bit over. So hopefully the foam should at least fit in the box. That's my main thing, is I don't want it to be too small at least. At least if I have it big enough, I can use the box. We'll make this sketch visible. We need to make its own sketch, however, so we can create. We need to make a sketch on this face, and then first things first is we need to project this line, or these lines, except for the projection didn't start going again. You know, yeah, just project both of these. Might as well. But I can't project them as sketch lines. Oh, I can! For some reason it wasn't working on my other project. So I can make these sketch lines. I don't think I should need these inner lines as proper lines either. What did I just make into sketch lines? What is it doing? The lines are still solid. Are they? This might be easier for you to see, but it's not working out well for me. I need to take these lines here and offset them. So we are going to do tolerance, which instead of being positive 0.2, it's going to be it's going to be negative 0.1. Then we take the offset, we offset this by fit tolerance, which then should already make it go inward a little bit. Yep. And those should be solid lines, so that should actually work. These outer lines also should be solid lines, that also should work. The first thing we need to do is we need to take the first body, we're going to name this box, and then we need to create a new body, which it'll just make it easier just to make it not visible. It's not a sketch line. Why is it not a sketch line? It keeps saying that it's a sketch line, but then it doesn't actually turn into a sketch line. Are there multiple lines here? Why is there still a solid line here? Okay, that was weird. Well, figure that mystery out. Why did this not offset? Oh, this frickin' program's frustrating. I'm just gonna delete the offset that it already did so that we can just get the complete offset like it should have been in the first place. And that's also to make sure that the corners are connecting. So then we need fit tolerance, which is going to be that. Should be on the inside, however, I don't think this is going the right way. I guess because it went on the inside, so then flip it, because yeah, make the box. It needs to be on this side. Why does it look like it's just in the, what? Why is it on the line? It's not how this is supposed to be. This is being really freaking stupid. This is such a simple fucking thing, but I fucking of course am having issues with it. Why wouldn't I? Fit tolerance. Now it's on the inside. Why was it not like this before? Unless I'm just stupid, but I'm pretty sure it was on the line. Something was not acting right, and it does this where it does it all the time, where like you do something and then you try and do it again, and then it offsets it for some reason in a strange way. But then you exit out and you do it again, and then it's proper. It drives me crazy. I hate this program so much because it's supposed to be so brilliant, but yet it does stupid things like that, and I don't understand why it does it. I'm sure there's some logical reason, but I just don't give a shit. Do the offset. So now we can hide the box again and create our starting piece, which will extrude this. And then this will be the lip depth, which is probably going to go the wrong way if I were to guess. Yup. So then it should be exactly onto the lid depth on the right. It should be exactly the right size. Create that. So now we need to extrude on this by the extra lid height, which will then join the lid, making this a little bit higher. And then the last thing is to simply cover up the lid and actually make it a lid. And we do that with another sketch because I don't know the way to offset the sketch. I think I used to, but this is just easier, the way I can understand, for making a dang box. So we need the outside of the whole thing, the perimeter. So then we create, and we can finish, and we can extrude that whole thing. Excuse you? Bring the sketch back, and now let's try, because then I can at least select the plane in the middle. Okay, so I do need the sketch at least, but wall thickness. There it is. So then we can bring in the box, and we have a box. Now the last thing is to make the parameters, which we only did one, but this is a bigger box, so we'll do 2 to see how it starts, and then we'll do a corner rounding could probably be more, but the body rounding has to be 2 because I had to reduce it on the other model. Corner, well, we'll just do both there for now. I think I needed to start with the tops and bottoms first. Okay, and then we can do the corner rounding. There's that, makes the flow just a little bit better. The last thing is to just add the labels, which I thought about it, and I think adding labels on every side is probably preferable, so that any way you look at it, you can know what's in it, hopefully. When they do shallow text, first of all, I need sketches, so this is going to be a whole frickin' thing. We're going to have to start naming these sketches so I don't get lost in them. So we have to create a sketch on here, lid text sketch, so then let's rotate this. Let's do this. Actually cancel. We'll create, project these line. We'll just project this square, and then we create text like that. Not too concerned about that at the moment. We need to. Never mind. I forgot that it's a big bitch, and it freaking needs you to sit there and put something in it. Otherwise, it's like no, didn't mean to create it. Very long name and designation, but that's okay. Let's make references for this in case I want to change it. Let's do 15 for now. We also want this to be centered in both ways. Actually, we could do it like this. So then we separate the, there's the brand name, the series, and then the actual unit designation. I like that. Copy that. And we could also probably actually up the size a bit. I actually didn't limit the box like I was supposed to. I'm going to do this to here, which is currently 6mm, so we'll do 2 on every side. Let's do 22mm. A little big. What does 20 look like again? We'll just go with that. Then we'll extrude this all at one time. We gotta make our next sketch though. And this is the left side. Make sure this is actually facing the proper direction. We will create a projection of that so that it's just going to be on the main body. So then we will create, now it's already at 12, so let's try, I'll try 10. I guess actually I could make it bigger if I do this, because on here, this is long, but so is that. I can make it a little bit bigger if I do something like this. So now let's try a different size. I want to see how 16 looks, even though it's probably going to be too big. It's not too big. It's getting close, though. We'll do 16. Alright. So now I just have to do that, but on this side, we'll hide the other one for now so it doesn't distract me and confuse me. Bazinga! Okay, so now it should properly be centered. Okay, so we gotta make a sketch. We also have to make a parameter. I don't know how big to make it, so we'll just do the default 12 for now. It'll probably need to be smaller since there is so much smaller of a space here if I were to guess. Excuse you. Can I adjust this, please? Really? What is it fucking doing? Why can I not select this? Control Z, please. Tell this thing to fuck off. Was I not in the sketch anymore? That was weird. Okay, so now we can go into our parameters. Let's try 10. Whoa, that changed a decent bit. What does 12 actually look like? Nope, that's what 12 looks like. What if I do 11? Okay, that comes to the right size, comes to the borders of it, but I think we need to get a decent, well, it could be a little bit smaller. We're gonna go with that though. Alright, cool. Now we need the upper side text and we should be able to extrude it and then be done. Finish that, make them all visible. And now let's make a parameter for the text step so we can make this really easy. I'm gonna try 0.3 again, but sometimes it looks deeper, sometimes it doesn't. I'm just gonna have to see how it is. And also I've never done vertical text before, so I honestly have no clue how this is gonna turn out. It might look really bad, honestly, but I'll still hopefully get the idea. Oh, cool, they let you select the whole text. I thought for some reason I remember having to select every piece of the text, every letter individually. Text depth. It's gonna take a lot of processing to do this, and it failed to create something properly. Okay, change of plans. We're gonna do it one by one. Created that one fine. Also it says join. Oh, because it's coming out the wrong way. That might be why it failed to create the body properly, is because it was going in all different directions and it didn't know how to actually handle it properly. That's what I get for trying to be efficient. So now we cut in that. Got it. Nice. We're also going to name this body lid. And while we're here, we'll hide the lid for now. Then we'll extrude the rest of these. Okay, got our text on all sides. Now we can show the lid, hide the body, and do this final extrusion. Got worried that when it had that error that something was going to be really freaking annoying, but luckily that is not the case. It just had a weird thing about which directions everything was going in. Okay, so there it is. There's the box. Now we need to export this and print it, and then be stressed on if it's going to actually be the right size. Let's save this, and then let's export these pieces. We have all the same settings that we used on the little test thing, and now we're going to apply them to the box, our big box, hopefully. They're going to be inside of each other, so I don't know where the lid is right now. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to print these at the same time. It looks like I should be able to. We just need to move this over like so, and then we can pull it like so, and that should be on the build plate properly. Yep. We'll push them out just a little. Excuse you. We'll push them out just a little bit more to make sure that the other tolerance has room, the shrinkage thing, because it says that it applies that after you do slicing or something for some reason. It said something weird that I'm not fully for sure, but either way it says to pay attention to the tolerances and the spacing. So let's slice this up, see what happens. It's going to be a long print though, 16 hours. But what the real killer is that 6-minute prep time. So I don't like how close this pre-extrusion gets. I could probably move these up just a little bit. So on the Y, let's do 35. And with the slice again, see, that gives it a little bit more of a gap. I am stressed that this is not going to work. Because how much filament does this use? 77 meters. Oh no, 200 grams. Whew. So, assuming that these are 1,000-gram spools, this is using a fifth of the spool. But that's also the box and the lid. So if one doesn't print and the other does, it's still 100, which is then a tenth of the spool. So, though I suspect that, this is using more, so maybe this would be less. I don't know. Either way, it's a lot of plastic, so I'm a little worried, but I mean, I guess I need to look at the inside here. So lots of infill. I probably don't need that much infill if I were to guess, honestly. I think it's up to 15 right now. Probably shouldn't be, actually. Yeah, it's not 10 already. I don't really want to lower it, because I need this to be strong anyway. What does 8 look like, though? It's a little bit better. Still 225 grams of filament. I'm just going to go with this, and we're going to see how it goes. I'm going to put some hairspray down, because I like to do that on any print that's going to take over, like, 4 hours. Let alone 16, 10, a long ass time. So I'm going to do some preparations and then we'll print this and see how it goes. Okay, so here is the box. Fully printed with the lid and such. It looks good for the most part. There are a few little problem areas, like there's this little, oh, that's just fuzzy. I thought it was gonna be a harder thing. However, the bottom here, the freaking white balance is being all weird here. The bottom did look like it actually warped up and curled, unfortunately, even though I did use the hairspray. I don't know if I didn't spray it far enough, or I didn't spread it far enough, but unfortunately that did curl. However, I think the inner box should hopefully be fine. There aren't any other issues as far as I can tell, but we'll be able to tell better once I get it off the print plate. So let's see how that works. Okay, so here it is. We have a much larger area to peel off, so let's see how well this works. I got this corner to lift up, but it is very firm. Okay, we'll definitely need to clean the build plate after that because I have to, I have to rub my hand against it. I think I already said this in this video actually, but this is just clean. It's so smooth, I love it. It's practically like glass, feels like it was printed on a glass build plate. G10 thing works well when you can get it to when you actually can get it to work. I still need to make a video about that, sorry. The text came out very clean. It's hard. I don't know if it's how hard it is to tell on there. I can see that they're shining a bit differently, which is a bit weird, but that's okay. But yeah, there's no drooping or anything, which is very nice. Well, minor drooping, obviously. It has to, but turned out very good. Inside looks very clean. Just have that one little wisp on the corner on this one. Let's try and get this off. Okay, there we go. Very clean, awesome bottom surface. Just have a little bit of the curling on the corners, which is very unfortunate. It's possible that maybe my outer corners here are having some cold spots or something. That might also be a possibility. Don't know for sure. So what I'm noticing is that there is like tiny bits of pitting on the side. It's very minor, not too much to worry about. Looks like there might be some ringing happening. This thing is definitely starting to fall out of tune, and I need to figure it out. I also have this thing where I have like a layer shift on the bottom layer here. That happens on a lot of the bigger prints, especially it's very noticeable on all the boxes that I've made or box style prints. Usually when it's small, it doesn't matter, but only when it gets big, then it's like, nope, it's gonna shift like that. Very interesting. See how the lid works? Honestly, could be better. It seems like it's a little loose, but I think it'll work. So now we have like the shoebox style box, but it's all I wanted because I wanted it to be a very simple design. Now for the most important test, the foam. Damn it, it's decently too big. How the oh, yeah, definitely now it's gonna happen. Good thing I caught it. It's frustrating. I swear I was trying, why is it so big? That's how much extra space is in there. The width is fine, but that's because I could also measure that with the calipers. I couldn't measure this other length of the caliper, so I had to do some adjustments and conversions, and obviously that didn't work. That's annoying, but I'm not going to reprint it, at least for now. I'm also not going to put this on Maker World or whatever because, it's just a box. And in order to make this box more useful for other people, I would have to add the CAD file and stuff like that, which I could, but then people would have to use it properly, and then it's a whole thing, so. I think this should work. Let's see how the lid goes on. Hopefully it doesn't get caught. Nope, that works really well. Don't even hear it moving around, so I think it's actually catching it fairly decently. Very good. Now the last test I would want to do is to throw this at the ground, but I don't want to do that. Because the only way to test to see if it actually protected the microphone is to have the microphone in it, and if it doesn't protect the microphone, then I have a broken microphone that I got from my grandpa, so I'd rather not break the microphone. So this is a very simple video, not, it's nothing too crazy out there, but I do think that I found some interesting properties here. I don't know if the way that this TPU lid working with that fit tolerance has to do with the printer not printing properly, one-to-one to what it's supposed to be, or if TPU just actually needs that negative fit, because this, like I said, is still pretty loose, if you ask me. I was hoping for a more snug fit. So, and this is already at negative 0.1 fit tolerance, so who knows how much lower I could go. Very strange. I also have to figure out, I don't know what this pitting is. I don't know if that's just under extrusion, or if that is the seam. I thought that the seam should be all in one place, and I think it's supposed to be on a corner, but I've noticed this on a couple other things as well when I was printing with my with this filament. So I don't know if that's a filament thing either. Might have to do some more experimenting with the Polymaker in 0 TPU to see if it does the same thing. We will be making another box soon, but it's going to be a different style of box with different, caveats, that sort of stuff. So if you want to see that, consider subscribing. We have more build vlog style things of designing and 3D printing things. I don't know exactly how I formatted this one. This one might be a bit different, probably hopefully a lot shorter. So try and go check those out. Should be something on the end card, maybe in the description. There are things in the description to support me if you would like. Affiliate links, links to my Maker World so you can print your own things that I've created, stuff like that. So please go check those out. This is normally a 3D printing and music channel talking about guitar, drums, and even, some other studio gear occasionally. So again, if that sounds good, please consider subscribing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. That's all I have to say for now. So I'm going to say bye-bye.